Welcome to episode 220 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench podcast network. He's Tom Albano. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at ETB Network. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network, as those numbers climb to close to 680 subscribers. Make sure you follow us on our website, etbpodcast.com, for all the latest blogs and information involving the network. Make sure you listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, iHeart. We're available on all the audio platforms as well. Of course, we have another change at the top of the news story ladder. Usually I like to joke about this, but you kind of can't joke about this one, unfortunately. Obviously we're recording on a holiday that I hate the most every single year, because I think it's the biggest Hallmark holiday of the year. But I'll put those differences aside.
It's actually a double holiday today because it's Valentine's Day, and then in the holy season of Christianity, it's Lent, start of Lent, Ash Wednesday.
So we'll put that aside. We'll come back to my hate to Valentine's Day, but unfortunately, we had a huge story right off the bat. So at the Chiefs Super Bowl parade, and we'll get to the Super Bowl. Don't you worry. We have a ton to talk about the Super Bowl, but unfortunately, we have to start on a sad note. A deadly shooting occurs at the Chiefs Super Bowl championship parade. One dead, at least 20 plus, or 22 wounded. You were telling me, and I didn't know this. I didn't know that there were younger victims involved in this.
So I currently don't know who the deceased is, but apparently a lot of the victims that are being treated at the hospital range from about 6 to 15 years of age. So children, teenagers. It's honestly one of the most sickening things I've seen, because it feels, Nick, it's sad to say, because I don't know what I can say to make this better, and I honestly don't think I can, because what can we say here that we didn't already say about Las Vegas? What is that? Almost about 6.5. Well, it'll be 7 years this October. Or the Pulse Club shooting. I know we weren't on the air for this. It was a few months before we met, but Pulse Club shooting 2016. And you think about what were we on the air for? Was that one of the university shootings in? Oh no, not university, high school. Was it Parkland in Florida in 18 or 19?
Actually, the day that we were recording and the day that this incident happened, it was 6 years to the day of Parkland. So now I hate to say this because crazy people do this, unfortunately, when it comes to these types of incidents. They pick a day to the anniversary of some major incident that happens, and they do another one. Because there are sick people in this world who think that they're being funny, or or they have some grudge to pick. So they do it on a day that another major incident happened.
But my question is, and I guess this is something for whoever is the shooter, whoever's the perpetrator of this, and I don't know if we'll ever get the answer. Why are you targeting? If he or she was targeted, why are you targeting kids? Like, what the hell is the purpose behind this? Why
mentally ill, sick people, part of it.
Mental illness in my mind, Nick, when it comes to doing such wretched, horrible, gruesome things, especially to children, there's no excuse for that.
Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying there's any excuse whatsoever for this incident. When you do something stupid, like I shouldn't even say stupid. I should say horrid, horrible, disgusting incident. you should go behind bars and never be allowed out, in my opinion. One, because you're attacking kids. Now, I don't know who the death was. I don't know if they released
Yeah,
the
kind of,
age of the death, but I'm reading from an NBC News report that literally is fresh as we speak. One person was killed, 21 others were shot, including children. 3 people are now in custody.
3 people. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So originally, I was at work and I happened to see this report come out, and I saw a picture of one of the shooter, the person who had the gun, and we try to figure out motives. What are they wearing? What do they look like? Unfortunately, because people get profiled, the person, like, people are gonna say, "Oh, it probably was a person who wasn't a Chiefs fan." Well, I hate to break this to everybody, but the shooter was wearing a Chiefs jersey. So
My guess, Nick, my guess, if anything, is kind of wearing that, regardless of a fan or not, is blending in with the crowd. It's just it's sickening and it's kind of sad because, you know, for all the concerns that you may have about a parade like this, we never really had, as far as I know off the top of my head, anything like that. You'll have your little security run-ins. You'll have your, you'll have your fools. You'll have your drunken people running around. You'll have pickpocketers. I'm not saying everything is perfect at these parades, but we've never had anything like this where 20 plus people are wounded in a shooting. Like it's sad. It's like everything that we have held sacred in this world and everything that we have celebrated for many years now, and it's all of a sudden now all these feelings about, is this okay? Like there's all these concerns. Everything is now a security concern.
right, and you and I probably both agree on this front. Shootings will never be okay, ever. It's just it's one of those things where, and we try, and this has nothing to do with politics. I have to say that phrase a million times because one, I worked in that world for 4 years, and trust me, I've seen my fair share of many things in New York City, from riots to protests to stores being smashed in. I've seen it all. Um, but again, mental illness, sickness, whatever it is, I don't care what it is. This is bad. We live in an unfortunate world now where
We're
there are,
numb to stuff. Like, I
r-
hate to
yeah,
say we, but it feels like we're numb to this because every year, and it seems like, Nick, to the point of every month or every couple of months, there's always something that comes up of some sort of deadly shooting, some sort of mass shooting.
and the one thing I want to make sure I point out as well, because I saw it right after the incident, there were a few gutsy individual fans that tackled the suspect as he was running around right after they heard the gun go off.
Wow.
And because I was talking to my parents about this before, and I said, and don't take this the wrong way when I say it, you couldn't pay me millions of dollars to step in front of a
Well,
gunman.
well, Nick, in a situation like that, that's what we call the fight or flight. That either your instinct is to fight and attack, or your instinct is to run.
No, no, I'm giving these people a lot of credit because they
Yeah.
didn't have to
No,
do
I'm saying
that.
that's what I'm saying, like, they didn't have to do that, but their instinct was to fight. Now, were they putting themselves in great risk? Absolutely, but that's incredible, and those people should be kind of commended for this.
And like we don't commend people enough for the actions that they take on a brave stance. Sometimes we just look at the negatives when attacks happen, but supposedly they managed to tackle this shooter before he could get out and do more. Now, we could spend hours talking about security at a massive parade,
Mhm.
including sports parades. And I think you and I have had this discussion before. How the hell do you do security at a sports parade after a huge victory? The answer is no, you can't. You could have millions, and I'm sure they had millions upon millions of police security wide, but you don't- I don't know if they had metal detectors set up. Now I know in Times Square, just because I'm more
Mm.
numb to that by now being in New York. For New Year's, I think they had 5 or 6 metal detectors if you wanted to get into Times Square. And if I'm not mistaken, Tom, didn't we have an incident after the ball dropped?
The victim in the Kansas City mass shooting, according to the BNO News Twitter account. Uh,
That's
uh,
NBC. Yeah.
oh, it is okay. According to then NBC, the victim in the Kansas City mass shooting is Lisa Lopez, a DJ for radio station KKFI.
I just read that too. I didn't know how accurate that was, but I
Mhm.
did see that.
So, so obviously not a kid, but now Nick, I kind of have a sinking, my heart kind of sinks. Somebody in our field, somebody in you know the radio,
Yeah.
like you said,
Uh,
you worked in for 4 years.
yeah. I mean, like I said, I've seen a lot. I don't like talking politics, but like you gotta be very careful when you're doing things out in public. I You know this. I was out when the George Floyd incident happened,
Mm.
and I literally had to tell my bosses that I am not going in the city because they were rioting all over Madison Square Garden right in front of the building. You have to make decisions in life that are going to protect you because there could be days or unfortunate days where you don't have that choice to make
Mhm.
anymore. Now, I know this is getting serious and I know it's becoming away from sports. Trust me, we will get back to it. But how could we totally ignore the fact that a massive incident happened
You can't.
the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl championship parade.
So people are going to have to cool their jets and understand that this is a big deal.
This
And
is one of those stories where sports means nothing.
right. And unfortunately, and I was telling my coworkers when I was there earlier in the day that this is now the story. The Super Bowl is now a forgotten story because
Mhm.
people are going to say somebody died and there are 22 wounded people. How can you freaking think about the Super Bowl?
Nick, as I know I hate talking behind the scenes stuff on the air, but I think unfortunately for our viewers of Football Friday, this has to now be part of that story. This has to be part of our recap now.
Yeah, I mean, and people are going to have to understand because again, and here's the other thing that annoys me too. People making this political, okay? And I had to explain to a bunch of people who I understand who I'm friendly with that you could be Democrat, Republican, or right down the middle. If you're a shooter that hurts people, you are stupid regardless of what side of the aisle you're on.
It does not matter who you are. It does not matter who you are, what your race is, what you believe in. If you do something like this is I'm sorry, but you're a sicko. I'm sorry.
Right. And so throw your political affiliations out the window, throw your race affiliations out the window, throw your sexual orientation out the window. This has nothing to do with it. It has to do with there are sick people in this world who shoot other people or go to an event where this is a momentous occasion for fans who are rooting for their team.
Mhm.
And it makes me like, it made me worried before, like, because imagine, say, Paul Lombardi, one of our hosts,
Mhm.
who hosts 3 and D, big Chiefs fan. Imagine if he was in Kansas City at this event.
Oh, I don't want to picture that.
And but that's my point. Like they pick these events where everybody is in one place. And if you know how these events work, because we've had some here in New York,
Well,
think
they
about
do that. They do that to make their statement.
But think about the Canyon of Heroes. It's not exactly the most open space. It is tight. Now, again, I think New York would be different. I don't
Mhm.
know because our police is
Right, well,
insane.
regardless, Nick, in 4 months from now, when the NBA and NHL champions have their parades, regardless of who they are, you're gonna see a lot tighter security protocols going into effect.
But is that
Yeah.
going to help? Is my question. Because, like I said, they probably had hundreds of thousands of police at this event, and
But
it
then
didn't.
here
And it didn't stop it.
but here's my counter to that, because then your other solution then essentially, I'm trying not to put words in your mouth, but then would be to not run these parades. The issue with that is then you just let them run. Why stop something that people celebrate? Why stop something that that where you have a city celebrating its champions? Like, why stop that because of one asshole?
Right, but I could also say that this is not just sports. This has happened in all types of parades around the country that we've had incidents of this, and we don't have proper security measures for these big events. Maybe now we're going to have to at these events where you have to go through a checkpoint just to get in to these
I
events.
I am fine with that. I'm fine with that.
But the problem is, it's going to be tough to keep tabs to that. That's going to be the toughest part of this whole thing.
But you can't just cancel everything and then just, I don't know, Nick.
I'm
If
not
you're
saying
going, I,
cancel, but I'm
not
saying you're going to have to do something.
I agree you have to do something. I'm just saying if you want to go to that extreme, then going by all the logic of, all these different instances with all these school shootings and stuff, Nick, at this point you'd just be saying never go outside again, which
And
I can say 1,000 different things
well, I
about
wouldn't say never
that.
go outside because that's the whole that's the bubble theory essentially.
Exactly, that's
Um,
why.
like, and most people might not get this reference, but you and I and a bunch of us joke about SpongeBob on these episodes. Now, again, I'm not joking. I'm just making a point that
The episode where he stays indoors
yes,
and just
and
talking to the chip and
I'm
the
I'm filter feeding because I don't want to go eat. Like it's the most ridiculous thing in the entire world, but that's what people are feeling right now. Like when we were dealing with COVID or we were dealing with these protests, we were stuck indoors, and it
Mhm.
caused us to have social anxiety and unfortunate mental health problems because you're not interacting with the outside world. And again, I don't know 100% where to blame this, so I don't think it would be 100% fair to put blame on any particular aspect until we get a motive. Now,
Right now, Nick, right now, the only thing you can do is blame the shooter at this point.
yes, absolutely. Well, and the two others that are in custody too. Now that they're claiming, but the story is not the Super Bowl. And like I said, we'll get to the Super Bowl. We'll talk about it. Um, I'll tell you right off the bat, like we would have led right with the Super Bowl game
Mhm.
if it wasn't for this. But of course, you get a clown show with a gun who basically was looking not to kill just one person. Let's be real. Okay. We're lucky it was only one person who died as of now. And and the 21 other victims were in the hospital essentially.
A lot of them kids too. A lot of them kids.
So it's an unfortunate incident. And like I'm seeing, like I saw Travis Kelsey tweeted, heartbroken for the tragedy that took place today. My heart is with all who came out to celebrate with us and been affected by Casey. You mean the world to me. Um, how the hell do you celebrate a Super Bowl now? You can't.
I don't know.
And not that this necessarily is a direct correlation. I don't know if you saw when Patrick Mahomes did an interview on CNN and he was asked a question where he's
Oh,
like,
stupid. Is this the one you told me about the stupid Joe Biden? Like
the
they won.
conspiracy theory of it winning to go against Joe Biden. But this is the problem, Tom, with our media. That first of all, if Patrick Mahomes, who is a very smart guy,
Plays a play no, but it plays along the same points of all the NFL is scripted. That they wanted the Chiefs to win because of the Travis Kelsey Taylor Swift relationship, so they rigged the whole thing. It smells
but
to I know that
yeah,
I know that's not necessarily based in politics, but still it goes along the same. It's the same parallel. It's a parallel, basically.
and that's the problem. One, first of all, the NFL PR needs to make a smarter decision when it comes to picking their interviews. Why are you going on CNN?
I guess major cable news network. So
And by the way, before you come after me, I would have gone after Patrick Mahomes if he went on Fox too. Shouldn't be doing anything political for interview's sake, unless they were looking for attention, which is what it looked like.
the thing is, I know CNN, Fox, they have their own sports, arms. Obviously, we had that whole incident just a few weeks ago about CNN Sports with the NBA with the Doc Rivers move.
Yeah, but those are clowns that fell for a inaccurate news report. But I don't know. Like it's a terrible day. Unfortunately, it happens on Valentine's Day. Another whole thing. Um, I don't know. It's just unfortunate situation. I've seen the story here also. Pediatric patients taken to Children's Mercy Hospital after today's shooting were 6 to 15 years old. All are expected to recover. The children will most likely need help dealing with it. That's a whole nother thing people don't
Yeah,
realize
the
either.
trauma that people are now going to have to deal with, especially those young kids, especially those who just got shot.
Right. Um, it's tough, man. And like, I don't know what we do. What do we do for securities at security at at these events? Unless you just say, well, we got to close it off to the public, which I don't want to. I don't think that's the right answer. But
Then how do you have a parade without a public?
no, like I said, I don't think that's the right answer. I don't like if you have fans out there who've been fans for a long time and they're not bad people and they want to see a parade because they've never seen their team win.
And I could talk about, this is the point where I could talk about if you want to put the political arm to it, Nick, about going out there, and supporting people who can make change. And I see a story like this, Nick. It's like I'm worried that, like, whatever new change, whatever new gun law, whatever new restriction is placed in, even if it was to the point of no guns anymore, someone will always find a way around it. They're called criminals for a reason.
And that was actually another point that I agree with, and I was actually going to lead up to that. Someone will always be dumb. Some will always get a gun because, unfortunately, and I hate saying this, but guns are way more accessible today than they ever were.
But again, like I just said, even if you want to put all these different legalizations in, if you want to put all these different restrictions in, someone's always going to find a way, whether it's because they've obtained it through some illegal means, some black market mumbo jumbo. So it's like, how can you plan? How can you get ready for something that
And you know
it's
what?
scary?
And you know what? The other unfortunate circumstances of these type of situations is what's the common thing we're hearing? Oh, well, the parents left their gun out and the kid gets it. Or now again, let me be clear, we don't know.
We can't make that assumption right now
No,
until
no,
we
but
look.
I'm just making comparisons to things that why we've had certain shootings
Mhm.
over the past couple. We just saw two parents go on trial because
Yeah.
their kid had a gun and they didn't know that their own kid had mental health situations and refused to take them home from school. And I don't. That one's on the parents. Like that one. Like, and now one got indicted. The other one is standing trial. those parents should never be allowed to see the light of day again, because you obviously don't understand your kid's mental health situation. Now, again, I'm sure we're going to find out more, but we don't know the mental health status. We don't know what the motive 100% was,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I mean, like I said, we could spend a whole show talking about this, but I just don't think that's the best way to really handle. I mean, I'm sure there's more legs to this that's going to come out,
Hmm.
but let's move on to the game because I want to talk about the game and we'll do our best to really talk about it.
Hmm. So the Chiefs are once again, it feels weird going to move on to this after what we just talked about, but as a weekly sports podcast, we have a duty to talk about the week of sports. So, Chiefs are your Super Bowl champions. First time since the 2003 and 2004 Patriots teams. That's the ones who won the Super Bowls in '04 and '05, given the seasons. Now, the season structure was back then. Uh, Chiefs are your Super Bowl champions, first time since those Patriots teams. So first time about 20 years that you have a repeat champion. So that's incredible. And now you have all the talk about doing something that no NFL team has done before, going for the three-peat. And judging by the teams how they are, Nick, depending on what the all season looks like, there could be a really strong possibility of a three-peat happening. The game itself, though. Um, I thought the first 45 minutes of that game were terrible. It
Yeah, the game was pretty boring. The first three quarters, it looked like Kansas City came out of sleep. And
Mhm.
I should say first three quarters plus. Like we thought, and there was a statistic out there. By the way, the broadcast was terrible. On top of it, also, because Nance and Romo were not on the same page the whole game.
They were. I'd say
Um,
I'm not Nancy Romo's biggest haters, but they were not on their A game for this.
no, and Romo was talking out of the left side of his ass the whole game. Uh, but
I don't know, Jim.
I don't know, Jim. I don't want this game to go to overtime. Which, by the way, they're probably thinking the lucky stars this game went to overtime
Oh
because
my god, fourth quarter and overtime were fantastic. Nick, there was a chance. It was getting late. There was a chance we could have had double overtime. Could
well,
you imagine a double overtime Super Bowl?
we'll get there because there's quite a few storylines to this game once the fourth quarter hit. But Mahomes' magic is real, like in a lot of ways. Like this man cannot be put away, being down. Obviously, if you remember, what was it last year? That was that the Buffalo game with 17 seconds, or
2
was
years
that
2
that
years
was
ago,
2
2
years
years
ago?
ago.
Oh, that was the first Super Bowl he won. That in Buffalo, 17 seconds left. This man manages to drive what 70 plus yards.
Down the field, gets a touchdown to force it to overtime, and then the Chiefs end up winning on the first possession of overtime, which causes a whole outrage, which leads to leads to new playoff rules, which we'll get to in a second. But we go into that fourth quarter, and that's when everything becomes tight, and the Chiefs were driving down the field, and Nick, once Travis Kelce caught that pass with seconds to go and they were near the end zone, I said, "This is how the Super Bowl is ending." I just talked about how the NFL, it's ridiculous. People are calling it scripted. I said, "Oh my God, this would be the Hollywood ending if he caught a touchdown pass in the final seconds to win the game."
I was literally sitting next to my brother watching the game, and I said, "Oh God, please, please, please don't throw it to Travis Kelsey, please. That the stadium will explode."
But the 49ers defense held. They only got the field goal, went to overtime, which, by the way, shout out to Moody and Bucker breaking the same record. Moody breaks it first, and then Bucker breaks it of the longest field goal in Super Bowl history, 55 and then 57. They're your real MVPs.
I mean, this was a field goal fest until the fourth quarter. I mean, nobody wanted to play offense. And by the way, the Niners offense, you got to give them some credit. And Brock Purdy, who had over 300 yards receiving,
Mhm.
This game was not lost by the Niners because of Brock Purdy.
No,
This game
absolutely
was
not.
lost because of the Niners defense not holding in the fourth
Which
quarter and overtime.
actually, Nick, it's very funny that you mentioned that because a couple of hours before we started recording, let me pull it up on here. Uh, Steve Wilkes out as 49ers defensive coordinator.
Wow, so they went scorched earth, didn't they?
They were not happy. Supposedly, they were not happy, and they decided Wilkes is done. He's going to be the fall guy for this.
That's bad. And you know what? I don't know how long he's been the defensive coordinator for, but I don't know if I could blame him for the loss. You know, and I guess we'll get into it because my next point is going to lead into the next banner I see there.
But Nick, you want to know why they lost this game? He was actually there, Nick, one season. That's it.
Okay,
One season.
BS. Then you can't fire him.
So, Nick, you know why they lost this game?
Well, a lot of defense. That's why they lost it.
Because in overtime. Now we'll
Yes,
get to the rule. We'll get to the rule about it, but with 8 minutes left, and Patrick Mahomes gets the ball. And Nick, they had their opportunities. Now I know Patrick Mahomes too much time. I know, we talk about the overtime rules, but
you talk
they
about the
had their
blown
opportunity.
touchdown opportunity by Brock Purdy and the Niners in the red zone.
Well, but Nick, did you see the scheme they were running? Prevent defense.
Okay, well,
Prevent defense with 8 minutes.
we'll
Against
get there.
Patrick Mahomes. How dumb can you be?
All right, slow down. We'll get there because that's important. You're right, but they were playing prevent in the fourth quarter, which made no sense either because that allowed them to tie it.
That covers my point. How dumb can you be?
But and the worst part, and I kept saying this to my brothers who was sitting there, you kept putting a field goal in Patrick Mahomes' pocket to tie. So there was no pressure on Patrick Mahomes to make that touchdown pass in the fourth quarter or make that touchdown pass in overtime because he knew as long as he got down the field in field goal range, they were going to tie it regardless. And
play man defense, don't play deep. And I feel like the 49ers could have stopped them and won that game.
And we'll get to the wackiness of that last play at the end of overtime. But for Kyle Shanahan, and it wasn't, I don't know if it was the players. The players came out after the game and claimed ignorance when it came to the NFL playoff OT rules. Now, let me explain this. They changed the rules after what happened in the Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl.
Chiefs Bills.
Chiefs Bills
during the divisional round a couple years ago.
And I agree with the rule partially because how the hell do you take a game away from a team after scoring the first possession?
Josh Allen.
That's terrible. You have to allow possession on each side. At least have a chance to tie on first possession. And you have to understand, this is like college football rules now. If you think about it, you can't take the ball first. If you win the toss now in the playoffs, you have to take that ball second and force KC to put up a touchdown.
But again, Nick, and the sick part is they had their opportunities with the defense on the field that they could have stopped the Chiefs and won that game. They had their opportunity. So to go and blame the not knowing the new playoff overtime rules, which, by the way, it was also the first time since they've enacted them that they had to use these rules. Somehow we hadn't gone to overtime in any playoff game since, which I find unbelievable. Especially when it's the Super Bowl. But you can't claim ignorance on this for a loss, especially when you had your opportunities. And if you somehow were ignorant, I would say that's on the players and that's on Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff for not getting them ready.
Well, number one, I'm going to say this first.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God. Stop you fucking lying.
You can't tell me you don't know the rules. because then Shanahan came out and said, or the team claimed that the strategy was if they won the toss was to take the ball first because they didn't want. Because from what I understand, Casey was going to go for the octopus, as they like to call it now in the Super Bowl, the 8 points. Which I don't know if that's 100% true. Chris Jones had come out and said that in the presser after his individual presser after the game that they were going to go for 8. So that's why Shanahan and the Niners took the ball first. Which, by the way, I'm not going to play it again, but you know what I'm thinking.
Dumb. Nick, even if it was true, it would be dumb, 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 and just plain dumb.
So I'm not buying the fact that they were unaware of the rules. Like, these rules have been enacted for what, 2 years now? I mean,
Like I said, we never had to use them before, but it should have been in the people's minds at this point.
and by the way, shame on the CBS booth. By the way, with Nancy Romo, they had no idea what the rules were if time ran out with a tie. Now, let me just refer to what they're talking about. So it was 22-19 Niners. Chiefs drive all the way down the field. I think they also got a 15-yard penalty, which helped them drive down the field, if I'm not mistaken, also. And they basically were on the doorstep of scoring. No, not that they were. They were literally on the doorstep to score.
But this was a play or two before Mecole Hardman caught the ball in the end zone for the touchdown, which I'm
What
sure
a play call, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely, which is great. Which, by the way, I'm sure you as a Jets fan, considering the circumstance of Mecole Hardman acquiring him and then trading him back, I'm sure that eats at you pretty well.
Well, he didn't play a snap for the Jets, so I don't know.
But at the point you're talking about is like, oh, what happens in overtime if it's still a tie? Like if they had to
Nobody knew. Nobody knew.
But Nick, by logic, wouldn't you assume another overtime period because
you would have to. You're not going to have co-champions.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to go to. It's the Super Bowl. It's the last game. We got to have a champion unless you're going to declare them co-champions and we're going to do one big kumbaya at the end to,
But like the both just like, and again, Nance is a fantastic announcer. He's been around doing multiple sports, doing the tournament, doing golf, doing the NFL.
But that's the thing, Nick. If you're CBS Sports and you are, we know the history with CBS Sports and their prestigious sports production company and sports broadcasting company, you would assume the researchers, the commentators, they would all be prepared for instances like this, and didn't seem like anybody was. This was a terrible broadcast by CBS.
And Romo being a buffoon during the whole broadcast, and then as the game is heading towards the final seconds of overtime, oh, well, I don't want more overtime, blah, 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 blah. Shut up.
You stop it. You don't want you don't want double overtime in the Super Bowl, especially after a Super Bowl where the first 45 minutes absolutely sucked. A Super Bowl where Usher's halftime show, I'm sorry, in my mind, could have been a lot better.
It was bad. It was terrible.
I like his party stuff. Stuff like Confessions kind of puts me to sleep.
It was bad. We'll get there.
We'll get there. It's when commercials were. I thought some of them were good, but they weren't the memorable classics like they used to be.
Just leave the Jesus commercials out of it, please.
You mean the AI generated foot watching commercial?
Yeah, that was a little bizarre to say the least. The only commercial that really stood out to me was the Uber Eats commercial where they forget everything. Like,
and I know this company has its fair share of bad circumstances right now. I did like the Paramount commercial where they had Captain Picard basically become the when Turo refused to throw Arnold from Hey Arnold.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. The Uber Eats commercial was good. I guess you could say the Dunkin' Donuts with J-Lo and Ben Affleck and Tom Brady was pretty funny too.
Mm-hmm.
But there was nothing that like some of it was lackadaisical and boring at best. But to get back to the game, final seconds are ticking off the clock. I'm sure you were screaming at the screen like I was. Timeout! 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 Where's the timeout?
Timeout.
And then as Andy Reid likes to describe it, as the ketchup and mustard play,
Yeah.
and which I was so confused. Like, so if you watch the angle of the play, McCole Hardman is hiding behind the
Mm.
offensive line. Now, apparently, that was a designed play where he ran in and then reverse course and ran out.
It was fantastic, honestly.
But I'm wondering if that was like a sleep tactic. Like, we're not taking the time out, and it worked. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if this was in the first quarter or not, but the Niners had that bizarre play where like they reversed course and then they threw the ball like across body, and then McCaffrey got that like very lucky touchdown in the beginning.
Yeah,
And by the way, he had an amazing game, McCaffrey, and they still lost.
I know. I think, Nick, if the 49ers had won that game, McCaffrey should have gotten the MVP.
Well, that was the other debate. Like, and actually, to be honest, like I said this after the game, I don't know if Mahomes is really the MVP.
Actually, Nick, uh, I think there was one person, now that I think about it, that had a game a lot better well, I shouldn't say a lot, but better than him that could have gotten MVP. Jawan Jennings. We talked all this time during the build up, on that stream about Ayuk or about Debo. It was Jawan Jennings who was the big receiver in that game.
Right. And I want you to take this stat in because this partially could have been the reason why. And I think the Niners could have scored way more than 22 points. McCaffrey led receiving and rushing. What does
Nick,
that tell you?
that Kyle Shanahan is a big choke artist, and he has learned nothing from blowing a 28-3 lead to the Patriots.
Okay. And I'm glad you brought Shanahan up as a whole because it wasn't after the game. I think it was like a day or two after the game. He comes out and the media system, well, you can't win a big game. And are you surprised he overreacted to the statement? I'm not.
I mean, I get what he's saying about, we win big games. And he's right, they do win big games, but he doesn't win the big game.
And he wasn't around for the last time they played the Super Bowl. I know that. But
No, Shanahan was a part of that team in 2020 that
was
lost
he?
to the Chiefs in the fourth quarter. Yep.
Who was the head coach? I don't even remember.
No, I
But
think hold on.
but as you're looking that up, but like just looking at the statistics, it was
Kyle
bad.
Shanahan.
Oh, was Shanahan? I didn't know that.
Nick, he became the head coach days after blowing the 28-3 lead.
That's right. I forgot about that. But the leading rusher after McCaffrey was Brock Purdy with 12 yards after McCaffrey with 80. That is a losing formula if I haven't seen it. Let's see, McCaffrey.
Pardon me, correction. For the Falcons, that was the Dan Quinn team, but Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator on that 28-3 team.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But McCaffrey had 80 receiving yards. Then it was Ayuk, which we have to get to him because there was some unfortunate social media fire after the game.
Yeah.
So he had 49 yards. Jawan Jennings had 42. Debo had 33. He looked like he got hurt in the game, also with the hamstring pull. Kyle Juszczyk 31, and so on and so forth. George Kittle was a complete disappointment in this game, by the way.
Yeah, I said that on Football Friday. It feels like he hasn't mattered this season. And
I don't know if that's exactly one of the reasons why they lost the game. I think you have to blame defense, 100%. Because think about it. On the rushing side for KC, Pacheco had 59 yards on 18 carries. Like, that wasn't a great game for him. Did you realize that the defense was stuffing Pacheco at the line? He was not getting out there and running. Mahomes was the leading rusher for KC for 9 carries for 66 yards. By the way, biggest carry of the game goes to Mahomes on that 4th and 1.
Yeah. You're right.
No one was expecting him to run on 4th and 1. I don't think the whole stadium all 123.4 million people watching that game didn't think he was running the football. It was the most bizarre thing seeing him set up and play action on 4th and 1. And like, I'm sure like myself, you were like, play action on 4th and 1. Are you trying to lose the game? Is that what we're doing here? But
Oh, no.
he springs off for 15 yards, and the rest is history, really. After that, but the game finally was entertaining, fourth quarter and OT.
Yep.
And to claim ignorance on this rule, I just will not buy at all.
All right. We have about 20 minutes left of the broadcast. Let's try to get through as much as we can.
Possibly can.
You have something you want to say about Taylor Swift?
Too much. Now, I know you're going to say 58 seconds. But every time, agree with me on one thing. Every time they showed Travis Kelce what happened.
I won't say every time, but there was a good amount of times they went to Taylor.
It's like, all right, we get it. She's connected to him. And well, we don't know how long that's going to last. But it's enough.
Nick, it's a love story. Baby, just say yes.
Ugh. But why? The NFL has an obsession. Like on their Twitter account, they were like making references and tagging her. I've never seen the NFL tag one person so much.
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
No. And actually, Nick, on that note, because you'd mentioned the Romo Nance broadcast, I have to say, I haven't gotten to watch all of it, but the Nickelodeon version of the broadcast with Noah Eagle, Nate Burleson, and the crew from SpongeBob and Dorothy was so much more entertaining. I've never heard Dora the Explorer go savage on NFL players, and I'm all for it.
I mean, it is what it is.
Nick, SpongeBob SquarePants, Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob,
Yes.
made a Leonardo DiCaprio dating joke.
Yes, I did see that. That was pretty funny. That was great. That one I'll give. And then you have Dora saying, no swiping.
No, I think it was on one of the penalties. Dora does it. Where are we going? And Boots says, back 5 yards.
I mean, you can't make that up. But and then you see like Nate Burleson flying on the blimp to the booth, which made no sense whatsoever. But I don't know, man. The Taylor Swift stuff became too much. And I don't know if you saw, I don't know if this was before the game or like right at the beginning of the game. Did you see her chug a beer?
Yes.
Like, what is going on here? Like,
one of us.
I wouldn't know. I've never chugged a beer in my life. But no, that's not even hyperbole either. I'm not the biggest drinker, but but I'm just done with the Taylor Swift stuff. NFL, get your shit together, please.
Oh, breathe, Nick. It's over for now. The NFL season's over. You don't have to.
What's next? Are we gonna have hashtag Taylor Watch going into next season? I mean, what's next? Are they gonna what?
I'm getting breaking news in my ear that Taylor Swift has said she'll be at the NFL draft in April.
I hope that's not true. I mean, what's next? Are they going to send Taylor Swift to Brazil for their opening broadcast for next year on Friday?
Oh, it's funny that you say that. So it's not a matter of that, Nick, but our next story, it doesn't have to do with Brazil, but the NFL is continuing expansion of international games. And in not this coming season, but in not this coming one, but in 2025, the NFL will host its first regular season game in Spain.
You know what? I said this last episode. I'll say it again. The NFL is probably the best marketers out of all professional sports. They know how to reach an audience. We've been to London. We've been to Germany. We've been to Mexico. We're going to Brazil. We're going to Spain. I heard a report that we might be going to France. I mean,
but Nick,
their international marketers are the best in the business.
Right. But it also goes to what I said last week myself, Nick. The NFL doesn't have a lot of it doesn't have all international players, but they're expanding the game by all these playing of games in international locations. Nick, when we saw the London and Germany games, Nick, especially the Germany game, you saw how the crowds are for those games. They are unreal. And then the NBA and NHL, I mean, they don't do as much international, but you have the players. A bunch of the players in the NBA and NHL are international.
Right. So like you have France and you have Spain
Serbia,
and you have
Russia.
Serbia, Russia. Well, I don't think you're ever gonna. I don't think you're gonna just see a game in Russia in any lifetime
No.
just because of
But-
what's going on. But
Right, but Canada, the rest of the European countries.
I mean,
Latin
O2
America.
Arena, yeah,
Right.
in London. I mean,
So they all do their stuff. They all do their jobs well, and then you got MLB who's chugging along behind, trying its best. But
well, MLB's had their fair share of games in
recent
Japan.
in recent years, yes, because they're going back to Korea for the opening series. I think it's the Padres and the Dodgers.
Yeah,
They're
it's
just
so
like-
technically it's before the season starts. It's one of those deals, but it counts as regular season
Right.
games.
So they're doing that. They're doing the London series again. They're trying a couple of other locations.
They're
that
trying
they
to go to
wanna-
France also.
Yeah, so I have to give MLB credit, but it is true, Nick, that the NFL is way ahead of the MLB in the international market, international marketing campaign. But you know what? I gotta give credit to all the leagues. Like we're seeing a look towards expansion for international, and it's fantastic. They talk about how here in the United States they want to expand the fandom of soccer. And in exchange, we're trying to get, our expansion of fandom for baseball and football. So,
Well, maybe I
think
should
it's
take
all-
that statement back partially. I think soccer is probably the best internationally marketed, probably, but the NFL for U.S. base is probably the best international market.
we're talking from a U.S. perspective. You're right, which also makes it more interesting. I want to see what happens in a couple of years when North America has the World Cup.
I can't believe they got the finals in New York, though. People are losing their minds. Like, oh my God, you
That
had the
pl- that-
final in New York?
Right. Well, listen, there's no guarantee that the U.S. team is going to make any of the games that are held at MetLife. But Nick, if regardless of what happens, when that final game is held at MetLife, that championship match, that place is going to be packed and unbelievably crazy.
I'm just surprised it wasn't in like a Dallas, which could hold 90,000, 100,000
Correct.
people.
But I told you already off the air about it. The deal is that LA and Dallas won't get those games. They'll have to settle for group games. But because they're group stage, that guarantees they're going to get the U.S. national team. So they'll
Right.
get the national team. But yeah, so Super Bowl broadcast, kind of blah, unless you were watching the Nickelodeon one. Which, by the way,
100
one more funny thing I was forgetting. Christian McCaffrey's fumble early on in the game, and you have Patrick and Spencer. You gotta firmly grasp it.
I did hear that.
Firmly grasp it.
I mean, that was probably one of the funniest
Firmly
things ever.
grasp it.
I mean, did Pacheco have a fumble also?
I think that was later in the game. Somebody on the Chiefs fumble. I think it was Pacheco.
I thought he had an early fumble because they were going to score, and then
McCaffrey had the first fumble.
that's right. But Pacheco fumbled in the red zone though after McCaffrey turned it over. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes the Nickelodeon broadcast was more entertaining than Nance and Romo, and that's saying a whole heck of a lot.
Although they shattering records in terms of people watching the game, people streaming the game,
123.4 million at least.
people betting on the game. It's all records. Nick, can we just declare the Super Bowl a national holiday at this point?
It's never gonna happen. I mean,
I know it's not,
I'd be all for. Actually, better yet, just put it on Saturday. Just put it on Saturday, because then at least you have Sunday for recover. If you don't want to give up Monday, because schools are going to be a pain in the ass about giving up a day of school or whatever, but got to do something. But quickly, the Usher halftime show, terrible.
Again, I like his party stuff. I liked at the end where Alicia Keys, Little John, Ludacris, all them started coming out. But, there was no Justin Bieber. There was no Pitbull. So it limited the kind of, his party songs, his party anthems that he's more.
Apparently, he wasn't feeling it. That's why Bieber didn't come out.
Wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
But Nick, And I get it. Like I said, I get it. It's been 20. He said it this 21 years since Confessions, but some of his stuff, Nick, like he was playing, just
Yeah, I mean, so he has a new album coming out, and I think he's going on like a 24-city tour.
yeah.
Now, that's the only reason why people agree to do the Super Bowl halftime show, because you're not paid to do
Well,
the Super Bowl.
the thing is, and I just saw a stat on it before, Nick, but the amount of streams, the amount of money that he's going to get from streams and these ticket sales and such, it's going to be unbelievable now after
Oh,
half.
it's free advertisement to 123 million people. That's all it is. I mean, a lot of what goes down is these performers actually pay to put their performances on because they know what they're going to get in return.
Yeah, found it out. All right. We got a few more stories we got to get through here. So, note on the college front, college football playoff. I know there was a lot of talk. Supposedly, Fox didn't go after the NBA because they were looking to maybe steal the college football playoffs from ESPN as the as the CFP is going to be expanding starting this coming season. That is not going to be the case. The ESPN and CFP have agreed to a 6-year extension, $7.8 billion. And this is going to include, Nick, this is going to include everything. You know, the opening round games that will be held at the local campuses, and then the, your other playoff rounds, including the semifinals and the final, which will obviously be held in the different bowl games.
Right. Now, this is not a surprise. Now, I heard there was some I don't know what the exact word is, but little targets within the contract that it could reach up to 7.8 billion. They're not exactly sure what the actual number is going to be, but this is not a surprise. College football makes tons of money. Like, and now that, and I'm not a fan that they're expanding the college football playoff. We're going what, from 7 to 12 or whatever it is.
4 to
And-
12. 4 to 12.
I mean, 4 to 12, which basically then you know what's going to happen after that, right? Well, the teams that are 15 to 20 now have to make it. It's going to turn into March Madness.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Am I a fan? Well, and also you just lost Nick Saban, which was a big market for them in Alabama. Um,
But Nick, as you did before,
well, no, money always talks, but what do they have to market? That's what I want to know.
they'll find something. Nick, the NFL could have been in a panic. What's going to happen after Tom Brady retires? I think the NFL's fine.
Well,
The
the
NBA
NFL had other stars.
Right. But you know what? We also just talked about the NBA last week. What's going to happen when LeBron retires? But you know what? Now we have Giannis. Now we have Embiid. We have all these different stars that they'll be fine. College football will be fine. Nick, we talked about how, maybe not here in New York, but in other regions, especially if you go south here and you stay on the East Coast, they love their college football even more than the NFL. They will be fine. College football will be fine. They'll find ways to market. There's nothing. Plus, Nick, you're always going to have, right? Speaking of the NFL, you'll always have people watching as, armchair scouts for who's going to, get drafted, who do they want for their teams. So,
Yeah,
I'm not.
I mean, that's never the issue. I mean, as long as you have people who want to market and pay for the rights to the games, they're always going to make money. Now, we did talk about the issues with the whole NIL thing, but obviously we weren't going to do that in the episode. But you have all these issues with the name, image, likeness again, where people are like, well, we don't want to do that. Well, if the sport is going to make money, then the players have to make money too.
Well, like I said, everything is big business at this point. We talked about last week. I think we had the clip go up a couple of days ago. What is amateurism at this point?
It doesn't exist. That's it. As soon as you pay student athletes, it's over.
Nick, at this rate, I'm the amateur.
It's a good point. I mean, you just if you're not playing the sport, that's amateurism at this point.
Okay, getting off of football finally. Going on to a couple of basketball stories really quick. The Knicks have filed a protest for a phantom foul call against the Rockets. Foul call that Nick went on the Yeah, I know how much you love this thing. The L2M report.
Yeah,
in
the
which
last
and that's
2-minute report.
And
Yep.
the NBA referees admitted, we kind of screwed up. Knicks, you probably should have won this game on the foul
Well,
call.
the head ref came out because the head ref didn't make the call for
Mhm.
that call, but the head ref came out after the game and said that call was wrong, admitted the call was wrong, and it was on the L2M report that was wrong. By the way, the L2M is the most ridiculous document in the history of sports.
I understand it from the perspective of, accountability, but then if you're gonna do that, and then Nick, let's be honest, with protests, snowballs chance in hell of any of them actually holding up. So, but here's
0.
my point. But here's my point then. If that's the case, and you have this report out there for accountability, then what are you gonna do to the referees who made the screw up call?
They're not going to do anything because the L2M
Then
report.
what's the point?
The L2M report is basically the oops, you got a call wrong, don't do it again, even though they always do it again. Yeah. Well, it's not even that because they don't do anything. But
Right. So at this point, Nick, you can just make as many wrong calls as you want, and
I mean, people are going to go back to the whole Tim Donaghy scandal with all the gambling stuff, and people are going to say, Nick, well, why are you bringing that up again? Because that does, one way or another, that is affecting someone who might have had the spread or had a
yeah.
bet on the game. Now they could give two shits about what people's gambling debts are or whatever, but
Mhm.
I watched this play. It was like a 37-foot three. The game was tied, number one.
Mhm.
So the one thing I will say is there was no reason for Jalen Brunson to be out hounding a shooter from 36, 37 feet because the odds of that shot being made were not good.
Yes, and I absolutely agree with you, but when you still get the call wrong, it's still infuriating, especially when we have all the technology that we do today.
Right. But you know the theory of don't put the ball in the hands of the referee.
That
Don't make the ref blow the whistle. Now, I watched this play a million times because I'm looking to see what it looked like. He was straight up, which is what matters. Now,
Mhm.
they did review it, from what I understand, and they stood by the call. And I think it was referee initiated. It wasn't a challenge,
Mhm.
but they still got it wrong. And then after the game, they still admitted to say it was wrong. So if you know that you got the call wrong after the game. Now, I don't know if they ever said what happened with the protest or not, but
But my point is, even if you're not gonna do the protest, find them.
here's
Do
the issue.
something.
In the past when teams have protested, you don't hear an admittance of failure. The head referee came out after the game and said that the call was wrong.
But that's my point, is if they're saying that the call is wrong, you're kind of forcing
You're kind
you're
of forcing a protest by the Knicks.
and you're kind of forcing their hand the NBA hand a little bit.
Here's where the L2M report said they were wrong, and the head referee for the game said it was wrong. That should have been automatic. That's as automatic as it gets. The
Mhm.
two evidences that tell you that something was wrong. Now, again, I don't know. I'm trying to look it up as we speak, but I don't.
Uh, as of this time, Nick, that we're recording this, there is no ruling as of yet.
And here's the thing: the NBA is going to do everything in their power to fight this protest because then they would have to go back to Houston. They would have to play the game from the current moment that it
Right.
happened, which was right at the end of regulation. And I don't know if since they're playing Houston, they probably only go to Houston once all year. If I had
Yeah.
to take a guess, because that's West Coast, it's Western Conference.
You'd have to look at the schedule to see where else they could fit this in.
So the odds of them on that front, they're going to use that excuse. We're not sending the Knicks
Well,
back
here's
there.
here's a quote from Steve Popper on Twitter. Heard from a league source that a team can protest for a call that is human error, but winning it is a different thing. Two league sources indicated that the purpose by the Knicks was to emphasize the point that they were robbed. It cost $25,000 to make the claim. Now, it sounds stupid, yes, but it goes back to what you said, Nick, that you have the
Wait a
two
minute.
pieces of
Wait a minute. Time out. What do you mean it cost them $25,000?
to do a protest. I guess it costs an NBA team $25,000.
I didn't know it cost you. By the way, NBA nerd over here. I had no idea that it cost that you had to pay $25,000 for a protest. I did not know that.
USA Today confirmed a protest filing must be accompanied by a check for $25,000 payable
I
to the
see it.
NBA.
Popper's tweet says it at the end. It costs $25K to make a claim.
Yeah, and
Are you
USA
kidding
Today-
me? Are you kidding me right now, NBA? That's bad. That's bad.
So, you have a snowball's chance of hell in winning, but we're still going to make you pay $25,000.
If I'm the Knicks and they still you need to go to a higher power, almost.
Nick,
Well, I don't know if this is an Adam Silver slip up because I don't know. It might be the other one. Do you have the other one?
the other one, Bass.
Yes. Yeah, because he's the one who's in charge of all this media shit and everything that is involved. But this is bad. It shouldn't cost $25,000 to make a claim. What is this? Insurance?
Mm-hmm.
It's not insurance.
Nick, the next might as well just at this point called JG Wentworth.
Oh God, 877 cash now. Yeah.
Exactly. Speaking of cash, Caitlin Clark about to cash in on something. So if you're watching this on our premiere day, she's 8 points away from setting the new NCAA women's basketball scoring record. If you're watching this after Thursday, she's probably already broken that.
Oh yeah, she's definitely gonna break this next day. I think they're playing today as this is airing. I don't remember. I don't know what time, but she's going to break it.
Yeah,
it's safe to say it's a good bet. I would take that bet that she's going to score 9 points. So incredible career by Caitlin Clark. She's going to come out. She's going to go into the WNBA. She's probably going to be a first overall selection if I had to take a guess.
Yes.
Incredible career at Iowa. They're going to go to the tournament. They're going to be a top 3 seed. There's not really much else I could say. She's an incredible player.
I know she hasn't had the
Okay.
cleanest of records in terms of controversies, but at the same time, she is an incredible player who is going to make an impact on the league once she goes into the WNBA.
I think people were overreacting to her getting partially body slammed after that victory.
Well, there was that, and there was the Angel Reese bit as well.
I think they were both wrong for that incident, to be honest. Angel Reese was wrong for flipping her off and doing that. And then look what happened to Angel Reese. She got benched for academic violations. A lot of athletes who think they're going to go into professional leagues and they don't have to try in school. Now, by the way, I think Angel Reese is going to be in the WNBA at some point too.
Mhm.
But Caitlin Clark is an incredible player. And I don't know if you heard during the NBA All-Star break, Steph Curry versus Caitlin Clark, or was it Caitlin Clark or was it Sabrina Ionescu? I can't. It might be Ionescu. Actually, I would have been more entertained seeing Caitlin Clark than Sabrina Ionescu.
Sabrina Ionescu.
I would have rather see Caitlin Clark versus Steph Curry. That would have been more entertaining to me. Don't get me wrong, Sabrina Ionescu is an incredible shooter, and she's in New York. So somehow we lucked out on that front. But this is an incredible story. She's broken a lot of records, and yeah, we'll just have to see what happens when she gets to the WNBA. She's going to be heavily marketed like Ionescu is.
So she's going to be a star. And Nick, speaking of, let's jump over to the baseball sphere. Pitchers and catchers have finally reported. So baseball is coming back, except Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, Jordan Montgomery, Matt Chapman, all without teams. And you know how they're all connected, Nick?
Yes.
Right there. They are all connected because they are one. They are clients of one Scott Boras. Well, well, Nick, I think it's safe to say now we talked about this about for the free agency after Shohei and Yamamoto both got their ridiculously high contracts, and we said this is going to tilt. Now all the players are going to want more money, and well, of course, Scott Boras, who is very aggressive when it comes to these contract negotiations, well, his aggression has now come back to bite him because all these guys are without teams as MLB Spring Training starting up. I know Cody Bellinger's been in talk of a couple of different teams, the Cubs, the Dodgers, but no contract official. Blake Snell, Nick, as far as I know, the Yankees 6-year 150 offer is still the only one that's been made to Snell. No other team has come out, and he's still saying, no, I want 270.
Which is ridiculous in the worst way possible. One, he's on the backside of his career anyway, if I'm not mistaken, right? I mean,
I think he's 30
he's
or
in his
30.
30s. He's in his 30s for sure.
Hold on.
But
He's 30, he's going to be 30. Yeah, he's 31. He's 31.
But he's had injury issues. He has problems getting out of the sixth inning.
For the sake of the Yankees pitching and for the sake of Snell, like you're talking about with the back end of his career, if I'm Snell at this point, I'm just saying, you know what? I'll just take the 150.
And he's sniping at that. Like it's not, and like it's cheap. Like it's minimum wage. Seriously?
And maybe there's a little biasness on our part, but and to play on a team like the Yankees and be their number 2.
I mean, that it would be a pretty incredible rotation just to Cole, Snell, Stroman, Rodon.
Yeah.
And then you could have Clark Schmidt or Nestor Cortez as a 5.
Probably Nestor, and then Clark Schmidt goes back to being your
long man out of the bullpen. I mean, that would be an incredible rotation. Is it perfect? No, but because I think you're going to see injuries in that rotation.
I was going to say, Nick, it's one of those things where as Yankee fans we're expecting the injury, so it's not going to be perfect. But on paper, that kind of rotation, especially Garrett Cole and Blake Snell, the 2 defending Cy Young champion, that's something.
You just hope that Garrett Cole keeps up what he did from last year and that Blake Snell, because remember, you're going from the NL West to the AL East, which is a completely different ball game in every way. I mean, I'll give him credit because he did pitch in Tampa. He has pitched in the AL East.
Correct. And actually, I should clarify, like I said, a lot more competitive, which, yes, but the National League West also had its share of competitiveness last year. There was definitely a competitive division as well. Diamondbacks obviously coming out of nowhere, surprising to end up winning the pennant. Giants being a little disappointment, and the Dodgers just continuing to be the Dodgers. Padres had all their stars, even though it was a collapse. So I have to give the NL West some credit there. But
let's turn back to why we're doing these guys. So these are Scott Boras clients. Scott Boras, if you don't know who Scott Boras is and you've been living under a rock for many years, good for you because you haven't had to deal with it. But Scott Boras is the biggest agent in Major League Baseball and will do anything or everything to get every last penny that he thinks you deserve. Now, for people behind the curtain, there was a great documentary on CNBC that talked about everything he does. He gets 4% of every contract that he puts. That's a lot. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's incentivized to get these large contracts. Now, the Blake Snell situation, he's not getting 9 years, 270. Blake Snell is either going to accept the deal, like the Yankees gave it 6 years, 150,
or he's going to do a 1 or 2 year contract,
or he's going to sit out, which we've seen Boras clients do.
And I expect the Yankees are not going to move off that offer so they can make a play to extend Soto.
Yeah. So the Yankees will leave that out there and say either take it or leave it. Secretly, I think they don't want him to take it. That's just my guess. But
Nick, I also heard that now there is a little bit of a backup plan for the Yankees if they don't get Juan Soto. I'll save that. But let's talk. So Cody Bellinger. I mean, what is this guy commanding, Nick? This remember,
20 million a year.
but Nick, this guy in Chicago, yeah, he had a bit of a comeback season, but again, he was hurt for several years before that.
And he's
He
hot cold.
right. Bellinger was an NL MVP, and then he declined like wildfire. How can you demand so much money? And again, that Otani deal, that Yamamoto deal, Nick, what term have we used that we also use
Outlier.
for watching? It's an outlier.
They're huge outliers. Now, Otani's contract being $700 million, first of its sort. Yamamoto was $325 with escalator clauses in it.
Right. Which, by the way, before he even pitches a pitch in the major league.
And I think he gets a bonus, if I'm not mistaken, right off the top. I think it's like 25 million or whatever for just signing. The all famous signing bonus in sports. Yeah, the Scott Boras thing is getting really old and frustrating and annoying. And like, I understand Scott Boras, you want Scott Boras as an agent because he's going to get you money that probably other agents are not going to get you. But also, what do you think teams are doing now because of Scott Boras? They're basically saying
they're becoming smarter, and they're saying, okay, they're doing the Moneyball method. It's like, can I get the kind of production you want, but for much cheaper than you're demanding?
Well, it's not just that, but they're just saying, screw you, Scott Boras, we're not dealing with you. And the major market teams are getting smarter too. Hey, because over the years, Scott Boras has had the Yankees number for many years, getting big time clients to New York. And look what happened. Now, he thought the Yankees were going to bite on the 9 years, 270. They're not going to bite. They're not paying anybody.
This is the point where Scott Boras is actually losing now. Jonah Montgomery, I don't know what direction he goes in. Matt Chapman, I think there are several teams out there, Nick, that could use a corner infielder that Matt Chapman can fit in with.
I was going to say, can we put Montgomery back in a Yankee uniform? I think that would be great too.
So, Nick, as I was saying, I heard a rumor today that now the Yankees have a backup plan if Juan Soto doesn't work out. That in free agency next year, they would go after one Pete Alonso. So, leads me into this story here, the last story on our docket. Try to go through quick. David Stearns, the Mets president, has come out and stated that he expects Pete Alonso to test free agency before signing a long-term deal. And I have heard... Nick,
hold on.
Now, Pete Alonso, I should make clarity, I believe is another Scott Boras client. However, what I also have heard, Nick, is that apparently Pete Alonso heard about this, and regardless of if there's a response to it or not, but Pete Alonso is a little pissed off with the Mets that they are going to, that they are going to let his contract expire before offering him any sort of new deal and not try to get one done while he's still in his arbitration years.
I think part of it is the whole method of distraction. Like, they're worried about that throughout the season. All right, let your contract play out. Let your arbitration play out.
The Yankees did with Judge.
Yeah, I mean, well, Judge came out right off. And by the way, Judge handled that way better than Alonso was handling. Judge basically said, look, I'm not doing any negotiating until the season's up. I'll play under whatever my deal is. We'll go. So, but David Stearns has a very famous disease, which you and I like to talk about a lot.
Open mouth, insert foot.
Yes, foot and mouth syndrome. Now, the Mets have not had a great offseason, to say the least. They installed David Stearns, who was the Brewers GM. Everyone said, oh, high profile. Excuse me. That I think the Brewers tried to block everybody from him being moved. Excuse me. And the Mets get him, and they're expecting him to make moves. You have I don't know if you want to call him a greedy owner, which has billions of dollars willing to spend. But I do agree on him not spending, because all the money he just spent on Verlander and Scherzer basically got flushed down the toilet because he had to trade them away. because it wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So this Alonso deal, I don't know if this is a hot take. He's not going to be a Met.
No, yeah, it's not a hot take, and I am 100% agree with you. He's not going to be. I think there's too much tension. I think the relationship has kind of died off. I think there's going to be a team out there, Nick, that's going to want a first baseman with the kind of power that Pete Alonso can provide. Which is
Gee,
why
you dare say someone needs a powerful hitting first baseman.
I was going to say, Nick, well, Rizzo's contract is up at the end of the season, and LeMahieu's now your third baseman. So that's why I said if Soto doesn't sign,
That, well, I think you could still get Alonso for cheap if you tried. I mean, like, as long as you're willing to give him a long-term deal, I think he'll bite a little bit less on the
Nick,
year average.
Just imagine if that actually happened.
You're gonna have Mets fans. Mets fans are going to hit the fucking ceiling if that goes down. And think about that, because you play interleague games and you're going to see them 4 times a year. That's going to drive Met fans insane.
Drive them up a damn wall.
And people are going to say, "Hey, Mr. Cohen, are you kidding me with all the money you have?" And actually, that's got him in trouble now, if you think about it, because he came in, he spent an obscene amount of money, highest payroll in baseball.
And now he's basically he's living up to his word, and he's punting on this season.
He's literally punting on 2024, and there were rumors that they were going to punt on 2025. If you remember from the story in The Athletic before Epler.
Scherzer Verlander stuff, yeah.
And look what happened to Epler. We didn't even get to that. Epler getting suspended for the year for all the IL investigation issues.
No, we talked about that a while back. We didn't.
No. But I'm saying now it just came out that he was getting suspended through the World Series in 2024. So the Mets have become a laughingstock of New York when everyone said, "Oh, Steve Cohen's coming in to save the day, spend the money, and they're going to play better." They haven't played better. First of all, I would say both New York teams have stunk up New York the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So,
well, 2022 was fantastic, and then 23 just
not good.
Yeah.
But Stearns just really put his foot in his mouth, basically saying, "Alonso, go test free agency." You're daring your biggest client or biggest player to go out and say, "Bye." Someone will pay him more. That's not even a question. Someone who's desperate enough for a power hitting first baseman is going to pay him. Now, I don't know if the Yankees are that team.
No, but it's just a rumor that I heard. But regardless, Dick, someone's going to sign him to that kind of deal.
I mean, I could see Toronto being in on that.
Right?
I mean,
especially if Chapman leaves this offseason and they go a year with Chapman-less.
I could see Boston getting in with a big wall in Fenway Park. Imagine how many doubles Alonso would have off that wall.
Yep.
The Mets are dumb. And now they're paying for it, quite literally.
Well, fortunately, we don't charge you for these episodes. And that's going to do it. I want to give a couple of shout-outs. Tomorrow, noon Eastern, final episode of Football Friday, where we're going to basically it's a postmortem, and we will discuss the NFL season. We will look back. We'll talk about all the Super Bowl, which does include, of course, what we talked about at the start of the show, the shooting that happened. Thoughts go out to everyone in Kansas City again. We'll talk about all that. We'll talk about the NFL honors, so we'll talk about the different awards that were handed out. We'll look back in our predictions and see how we did, and we'll prepare you for next NFL season. And then we actually have a couple more shows to tomorrow as well, including the new season debut of Hitting for the Cycle. Hitting for the Cycle is back. Ryan Toohey and new co-host Ben Cruz. So join them for that as we get ready to prepare. I like the transition at the end of baseball that we're getting ready for the new MLB season now. And then, of course, moving the goalposts with Nick DiMartino and Liam Barwick.
Yeah, so NFL season ends, MLB begins. NBA still in full force.
NHL
NHL is still going.
but both of
Um,
them, both of them a couple of months away from the playoffs, 1 month away from March Madness.
Yeah, we'll have some March Madness. We'll probably do a bracket show. I think that March 17th is probably because I think that's the bracket drop night.
Let me see.
So we'll get
Um,
into that.
yeah, so it would have to be probably March 17th or 18th or something like that.
So we'll get into all that. Um, a lot coming down the pike. So just make sure you follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Please like and subscribe. Help us grow as we inch closer to 680, trying to get 700, and then eventually 1,000. Everyone's supports helps as we
Mhm.
continue to grow and add people. We have some other new shows in the pipeline that are being fixed and ready to go. So when those are ready, we'll announce it.
Yep. Check us out on our audio-only platforms, Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so much more. If you are listening on those platforms, we thank you. But also come to our YouTube home, youtube.com/ETB Network. Support our show there. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I mean, Instagram at ETB Sports, and then the network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
Yeah.
and TikTok, ETB Network, etbpodcast.com for more content, more information about the network, all the behind the scenes stuff, blogs from some of our contributors, so much more. Make sure to follow myself and Nick Morgasen on our own personal social media handles at Thomas J. Albano, at N Morgasen Radio. And yeah, that's going to do it. So, Nick, next week it's going to be our first Empty the Bench show with no football in the regular season. That feels weird, but as
What?
we said, basketball's still in full swing, so you'll be happy, and baseball on its way. So, still more of a ride to go through.
More to come, as they say.
Yes.
So for Tom Albano, I'm Nick Morgasen. This has been episode 220. We will see you next week for episode 221. Good night, everybody.